Okay, so what I'm going to do in this chapter are even more lighting tweaks. And these are going to be very minor, and the first one's going to start right along kind of this lip right here, this edge. I was looking at this, and I was noticing that, well, I've got a lot of sun coming from up here, and I've got this nice shadow down here. I'm missing this contrast edge. Let me move my mic down. I'm missing this contrast edge right along right there and over here and as well down here. So we're going to take care of that. We're also going to add a little bit more depth and kind of character to these stones on the side by adding just another lighting pass. Then this wood right in here. I'm going to turn this wood down just a little bit because it's a little bit too bright for the overall scheme of this texture. So we'll turn that down. We'll be using a curves adjustment layer for that. And another thing that's missing is we're missing kind of a sharper shadow right in here. So we'll be creating that shadow from the arch layer right there. Alright, so let's begin. So first, to create this little lighting edge right in there. And because this actually will fit on because it's part of kind of this shadow right here, and all that's in the stone facade. So I need to create that outer glow right here, and I have a layer right here, the stone facade copy, and that's that shadow right there. So if I try right now to create like a layer style on this or a layer effect, let's go ahead and do that. Outer glow. Well, I don't see anything showing up just yet. So maybe we'll make it a lot larger. See what happens? And nothing. So nothing's happening there. And it looks like what I'm going to have to do to fix this, or at least to make this work, is I'll have to control select this layer, then make a new layer, not with clipping mask, but I'll call this outer glow layer, and then set my selection to the layer mask, and I'll just fill in with a color, any color. Okay, we've got that. Now if I turn the fill all the way down, so I'm turning the fill all the way down because I really don't want anything in there, but I need to have something in there in order to get the layer effect to work. Now I'll go ahead and create this outer glow. And after do a little experimentation, I've come up with some values that I like for this. So already I can see as soon as I did that, I got a little lip right there. That lip, it's a little bit too strong, so I'm going to move this off the screen so you can watch this change. And when I'm done, I'll move this back so you can see the values exactly, but also read them out too as I go. So the blending mode I'm going to set to overlay. And the opacity I'll set to 51%. The noise, actually I'll change the noise later. I'll set my color to white. Alright. And the technique, and I'll show this to you as soon as I'm done setting all these values. The technique, I will keep it softer. The spread I'll set to 3%. And the size I'll set to 24 pixels. So at that size, like it starts to really show up and be much softer. Now I'll set the noise to 27%. And it just gave a real faint kind of mottled feel to the noise around there. So right down in here and right up through here. That's where it's really taken effect. Now I've got this floating thing right in here, and that's all I have to do for that is just update the actual, yeah, all I have to do is update the layer mask. Okay, so I'll bring these up here. So blend mode is overlay, opacity is 51, noise is 27, have my color set to white, technique is softer, the spread is 3, and the size is 24. Okay. Alright, so to take care of this little line, what I'll do is I will select the layer mask for the original stones. I can see that my dancing ants are now right along those lines. And all I want to do is I just want to brush in this space. But right now that's the negative space, so I'll just Control-Shift-I, invert my selection, and now, using the brush tool, and it looks like I'm painting with the wrong color, so I'll go ahead and press, get my brush and press X. Oh, there we go. Alright, much better. So, this is what we have now. This is what we had before. Having that highlight right up there catches the sun, and it really adds, really enhances the kind of 90-degree or the sharp corners of that stone right in there. So the next thing to take care of, I'll go ahead and close this layer set. Now I'm just going to set a small inner glow on these side stones right out here. Alright. So now that I have these side stones layers selected, I'll just double click here on Effects and click Inner Glow. So again, I'll move these down, and so you can see what I'm doing, and then at the end I'll show you the settings that I have, and I'll also be talking you through it as well. So just like the last one, just like the outer glow, and this inner glow I'll be setting overlay. My opacity I'll be setting to 40%. I'll set the noise later. Color I'll be setting to white. Technique I'll set to softer. The source, instead of the edge, I'll be setting this to center. Alright, my choke I will set to 100%, and the size I will set to 16 pixels, and the noise, set that right back to 27%. So here are the settings for that if you want to pause the DVD player or whatnot and just have a look. Okay, so I will close that up. So now for this wood, I'm going to turn this wood down just a little bit, and by doing, the way I'm going to do that is create a curves adjustment layer right up here at the top, curves, and so if I select from here in the middle, if I move this point up, it makes it brighter. If I move this down, make it a little bit darker. What I actually want to do is, I'll set this to about somewhere right in here, and this top color, I'll move this, keep moving this down. So by moving that white point down, it pulled out some of the contrast. And having the boards be darker kind of pushes them in into the picture and really brings out the stones as kind of the forefront. Alright, let that redraw. So that's what we had before. This is what we have now. And finally, there's this arch shadow. Like I was looking at this, and I think there's a sharp kind of shadow that's missing from this cast arch. So we'll go into the arch layer set this time, and take this arch layer. We're going to duplicate this. Now watch what happens between the relationship of the arch layer and its clipping layers and the duplicated arch layer. So come down here and drag this, make a duplicate. So immediately arch copy 3 now takes the place of arch. Notice that the clipping layers are now assigned to arch copy 3 and not to arch. Threw me off at first. Now this arch, I've made the dupe, so I'll just use the arch itself, and I'm going to turn this into a shadow. So I'm actually going to take the arch, this arch piece right in here, and I'm going to turn this into a shadow. But I'll be casting the shadow right here in these door stones, so I'll actually move this layer to the door stones layer set. And because I want it to affect all these door stones, I'll move this right to the top. Okay, so knowing that I want this to go ahead and move this down. Oh, let's undo that real quick. Now the reason it got all funky is that this layer is still linked to all these layers in the arch layer set. So I undid that, and I'll move this down once again. There we go. Now it doesn't look like a whole lot right now, just really nothing to worry about. So I'll get a dark blue color, which looks like I already have right here, and I will flood this in this layer right here. So control backspace. Alright, and we're done. No, I'm just kidding, I wouldn't do that to you. Instead of luminosity, I'll set this to multiply, and now this is way too dark, but I'll set this fill to somewhere right down here. That's a lot nicer in there, a lot smoother. And we got that and that, taking care of all this right in here. Now, for my taste, it's just a little bit too sharp, this edge. Shadows that get farther away from the actual shadow casting object, they kind of blur out. So I'm going to come up here to filter, and make sure that you have your actual layer mask selected and not the layer itself, because what I'm about to blur, and blurring a solid blue won't do anything. So there's a few blurs I can use here, and I found that the one that will work best for this is Gaussian blur. And you can see it update right down here. So if we turn this up to 3.0, then it really, like, we get a real nice soft edge right there. Turn this up even more. Now it's very soft. Probably bring this somewhere down in the there we go. 2.7. I have my original listing here set at 1.4, but it just kind of depends on whatever it is that you're going for. Alright. Okay, so we've done 3 things now to enhance the lighting and shading on our scene. And they're very, they're minor in look, but in their overall impact on the texture, it can't be understated. So let's go to Stone Facade and have a look at the first change we made. That one Just makes a whole world of difference. Turn that off. So we've got more of a shadow in that arch there. And the wood. So before I end this chapter, there's another half of this chapter that I want to talk about, which is removing repetitive patterns. And the largest repetitive pattern to be removed right now is found in this stone facade. So we've done a whole lot to take away some repetition. We've knocked parts out and covered up other parts. We've added doors and windows. And I'd say we've done a really great job of removing patterns, but if you look at this, you can still see, like most noticeably for me, there's this triangle that just, and this dark stone right here that just keeps coming back at me. And there's a few ways to clean that up. The first way is to actually just import a whole new image to cover those parts up. And to do that, I go back up here through my file browser. And when I'm looking for images to import or export, move this out of the way. Or excuse me, when I'm looking for images to actually import onto these stones, it needs to duplicate that actual look and feel of the stone. So the stones that we have right now are they're large, they're very blocky, they're not necessarily squares or long rectangles. So because of that, and it's also kind of arranged haphazardly. So because of that, it doesn't make sense to, say, select this kind of stone or this kind of stone, because those wouldn't fit in very well. This might, but these are a little bit smaller. I'll keep this in mind. These up here might as well, but again, there are a bunch of small stones in here. So this definitely wouldn't. This one, from what I have, I think this one will work excellent. So I'll just open this image up. You'll have to forgive me every time you see that time you see those numbers in my window. That's that 3 right there and that 4. That's just my Wacom tablet. Okay, so come over here, bring the layers back, and I'll just drag drop this. Alright, so I've got these stones. Now these stones, I'll go ahead and put this in the stone facade layer set. And I will put these right below this outer glow layer. So now no matter where I put these stones, they still have the benefit of that outer glow that we created. So obviously the very first thing that's wrong with these stones is that they're, well, they're quite large. Go ahead and scale that down. Move this into place up here. Hold down the space bar to get the hand. Now if you start mouse scrolling and instead of zooming, it scrolls up and down in your window, hold down Alt and it will just continue to zoom in. So Alt and mouse wheel scrolling will zoom in or zoom out your image. So I think I'm going to shrink this down just a little bit. I've got some areas in here that have a lot of grout, which I'm going to try and stay away from. So I'll make this smaller. Okay. Hit enter to complete it. And every time I know that I'm going to be painting something out, I always control select that layer, make it its own layer mask. So that way I can start painting in the layer mask. And I already have all this other space out here. Everything else out here is now negative space in the layer mask. So I get a brush. Got lots of brushes. Take this one right here. So I've got the pointy ends, which means the pointy ends, it means that I have pen pressure turned on for the size jitter. So now there's always a way to marriage these two textures together such that it looks like they belong. And it always takes a little back and forth between each texture. And if you're proficient in this, or you're just getting bored with me painting, because I know I've been doing that a lot, you can go ahead and fast forward and just see what's going on next. But before you do that, I'll go ahead and set this layer blending mode to luminosity. And with that set, it's a little bit darker than I really want right now, so I'll create a levels adjustment layer. Hit OK, make it a clipping layer. And now, because I want things to be a little bit brighter, I'll move this down a little bit. There we go. So now I'm going to start painting, and you're welcome to watch, or watch MacGyver, or have a hot dog. I'm going to turn this layer down so I can see both sets of stones. So as I'm painting, I'm really seeing that my initial placement didn't get this repeated part right here. So I'll just move everything over a little bit. Because that was the biggest problem in this repeated pattern on the stone facade. And just redo my I'm also going to this layer, I'm also going to sharpen this because it's just a little bit too blurry. Alright, much better. Go back in here, turn my layer down and just go right back to the old brushing. So as I'm painting this, one important thing that I'm trying to keep in mind is that something that's really going to make this believable, that these stones were actually set together, is to maintain a grout in between them. It is that grout that tells our eye that there's a separation. Now for something like this, I should probably fudge just a little bit. And make the brush softer so that I can get a more feathered . Zoomed out on you there real quick. I think things are going to go quicker like this. Okay, so that's what we have now, and that's what we had before. And the final thing here, like I'm looking at this and I'm thinking that those might be a little bit too small and might kind of throw off the believability. If I want to scale this out, one problem that I run into immediately is that I'd automatically have to repaint everything because this matte, this layer mask, matches these stones perfectly. What I can do is unlink that mask, and now, making sure that I have the layer itself selected, I can scale the layer up without scaling out the mask. And I can also move this layer up. Beautiful. Go ahead and link that back real quick. So without and with. So now this has a little bit of a different character, and you know, we've gone some steps to kind of get rid of that repetition, especially in such a noticeable area.